Battery Bill. Battery Bill. For cameras, computers, cars, or scooters. For trucks, boats, jet skis, remotes. Battery Bill. Battery Bill.
All right, Happy New Year, everybody. Episode 71 on Hawaii Football Now. Jordan Helle, Hunter Hughes, back with you. Fresh year, fresh episode 71. As we mentioned, big mahalo to our usual sponsors, Spectrum Mobile, Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union, and Battery Bill. We record this Tuesday, January 3rd. It's about 7:10 a.m. in the morning, Hawaii time for me and Jaron. Hunter's on the continent, enjoying some family time. I know that's been a nice little break for him. Set to release this on Thursday, January 5th for our first episode of 2023. Kind of hard to believe that we're already into the new year. We are on the other side of the holidays, if you will, and we are already up to episode 71 here on Hawaii Football Now. A nice start to the year for us. Hunter, how was it your New Year's? And you'll be on your way home, I believe, pretty soon, or back to Hawaii. So, have you been enjoying the Oklahoma weather?
Yeah, we got a chance to chat right before we hit record. Oklahoma weather is kind of a coin toss, I should say, every morning. And last week we were battling severe weather with cold and snow, and then this past weekend it got warm enough to play some golf all the way into the 70s. So it's kind of just a crapshoot for what you're going to get, but it's been a good time. A lot of great college football out there. New Year's was filled with a lot of that. New Year's Eve, I should say, with Georgia besting Ohio State, and then of course the Michigan TCU game. A lot of good stuff out there. I know we'll get to it later too. Even some long-term implications for schools like University of Hawaii with what we've seen in the bowl season. It's a good time to be a college football fan.
Yeah, we saw a lot of really good games, and as you mentioned, we'll touch a little bit on that. All right, quick opening drive time. First of all, big thanks to Zion Bowens, our guest on last week's episode, our final episode of 2022. Had fun catching up with him. Big thanks, and best of luck for him as he's got some exciting stuff coming his way, I think, as he prepares for his professional future, wherever that may lead him. Kind of switching gears. So we mentioned we record this Tuesday, January 5th, of course. Last night was Monday Night Football. It was the highly anticipated Cincinnati Buffalo game in Ohio, Bengals, Bills, that came to an abrupt halt. And I think, affected a lot of folks watching the game. I think affected a lot of folks who didn't watch the game, who heard the news. But Bills safety Damar Hamlin, who collapsed after making a tackle, standing back up onto his feet after making the tackle, and then back down to the turf. Apparently suffered a cardiac arrest, was resuscitated on the field, and last check, again, it is Tuesday morning Hawaii time, it's midday over there in Cincinnati, that he is recovering. At what rate, we'll find out in the days to come. But he is, still going, which I think is the main thing there. And for anybody watching, anybody who heard the news, any football fan, anybody who's played the game, I think it hits kind of to the core to see a guy go down like that, and just jarring, really. When it came down to it, and from our small, humble podcast, we obviously wish the young man all the best, and hope that things turn out positively.
Yeah, Jordan, you played football. I played football. It's tough to imagine something like that going down in the middle of a game. Obviously, we know what we know now with CTE, and we've heard about guys going down years after they've played, long-lasting effects of the game that we play. But something like that, for it to, literally stop him in his tracks. You know, he gets up from the play after he tackled T. Higgins, and T. Higgins' helmet, had hit him in the chest, and it was enough to essentially stop his heart. And he dropped like, a sack of bricks. It was scary, man, to watch that happen. And you see the resulting emotion over all of his teammates' faces, including Josh Allen. It's it's tough to imagine that could potentially happen to somebody. And I'm ecstatic that he's recovering and at least in a stable place in the hospital right now, because the last thing you want to see for anybody is that they lose their life unexpectedly like that. But then especially in a game like football, I mean, who knows? If he would have gone down and lost his life right there, we might have said goodbye to the season right there. It would have had serious long-term implications for the game of football as we know it.
Yeah, I can't imagine, what his teammates were going through. I mean, we saw some of the images on Monday Night Football, and I thought they handled the broadcast quite well. It was ultimately a suspended game. I think a lot of people concerned as to how long that took on the official word of it. The early indication that they were going to try and restart the game. I know a lot of that is protocol, and I'm not necessarily trying to point fingers until we find out a bit more. But at the end of the day, the main concern is the health of Damar Hamlin, and we really hope the best for him going forward. No doubt about that. And just wanted to touch on that. We're a Hawaii football podcast, but it's a football podcast at its core. And us being a couple football guys, man, that's about as scary as it gets. And we just really hope that things turn out positively in the end. All right, that'll kind of lead us into the transition into the game time as we continue our signing day breakdown. Those of you who have joined us the last few weeks after the early signing day period earlier last month, it was a massive class. It is a class that is not done yet, but for the early signing period, 26 total signees. Last week, we looked at about 12 of them. Essentially, we got through the Hawaii high school signees coming out and the transfers from other four-year programs. We'll start off with the JUCO transfers today. So there are a lot of transfers coming in with collegiate experience, whether four-year transfer guys in the portal, grad transfers and the like, as well as junior college guys, right, who've got a little more experience, got a little more maturity maybe than some of the high school kids coming out and could play an immediate impact there. Before we get into that, I want to remind everybody that Hawaii Football Now is brought to you by Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union. As Hawaii's largest credit union, they are committed to serving individuals and businesses through its 14 branch locations statewide and convenient digital banking services. As a leader in providing support for the islands, Hawaii USA is committed to strengthening Hawaii's financial wellness and sharing successes with members, local businesses, and the greater community as well. Visit hawaiiusafcu.com. All right, diving back into it, some of the junior college transfers that we mentioned, there were four of them, all of them on the defensive side of the football, three of them defensive backs. And no surprise there, Coach Abe Elamimian has usually recruited the junior college ranks very well. Kind of interesting, they come from all over. You've got defensive back Caleb Brown, 6'1", 165-pound junior out of Butler Community College. That's in El Dorado, Kansas. Originally from Anniston, Alabama. He was an honorable mention All Jayhawk Conference performer this past season, leading the team with 5 interceptions, 14 pass breakups, also had 39 tackles. He spent 2 years prior at FCS Kennesaw State down there in the South. He prepped at Lithia Springs High School in Georgia. So you got him. You've got defensive back Justin Sinclair, 5'10", 187-pound junior from College of San Mateo. I think familiar for folks. He's originally from East Palo Alto, California. He was a 3-star per 24/7 Sports coming out, was ranked 4th among all junior college safeties nationally. First team all league. He had 5 picks, 46 tackles. And that was a really good College of San Mateo team. Went 12-1, won the California state title. If those familiar with the JUCO system, California kind of does things on their own because there are so many junior college programs there, and basically the highest you can achieve as a team is winning that state championship. Some of those junior college national titles, those are for schools elsewhere. the Midwest, Texas, Florida. California kind of does things on their own. So that's a big deal. College of San Mateo winning the state title in California. You got CJ Williams, also out of a California junior college. He's 5'8", 181 pounds, out of Shasta College up in Redding, California. He's originally from Florida, from Quincy in Florida. 2 years at Shasta, was first team all-region last year, 30 tackles, 2 interceptions, 3 tackles for loss. Also returned kickoffs. Actually, a number of these guys, whether the junior college guys, even some of the high school guys, kick returning experience. So it shows you kind of the level of athlete. And then the one junior college transfer that's not a defensive back, you got defensive lineman Daniel Williams, 5'11", 339 pounds, out of Trinity Valley Community College. He's out of San Antonio, Texas. And these numbers are wild. He was second in the NJCAA, the National Junior College. So exclude California basically here, in tackles for loss. He was first team all conference. He had 99 tackles, 25.5 tackles for loss, and 9.5 sacks last season, at about 5'11", 300 plus pounds. The dude sounds very, very intriguing. I didn't get a chance to look at some tape on Daniel, but Daniel Williams here, color me very interested in watching this dude. These DBs are pretty exciting as well. As we mentioned, guys that have produced in coverage, also can tackle a bit. And you've got a array of dudes. You've got some of the maybe smaller, more athletic types. You've got a guy in Caleb Brown who goes 6'1", and then you got Daniel Williams, who is maybe this unicorn, just out there wrecking shop in teams' backfields. At least that's how it was at Trinity Valley Community College.
Yeah, absolutely. For someone at 5'11", 339, as I'm reading right here, I mean, it sounds like this guy Williams is built like an absolute brick house, and an absolute clogger in the middle. 99 tackles, man, that you can't teach that. That's just someone who wreaks havoc. 25 tackles for loss and almost 10 sacks on the season. That's just shy of 1 a game. We need that immediately on our defensive front. I'm with you, Jordan. I think this guy singularly is someone that I am most excited about, and someone that, as Coach Timmy said, we've got guys that we're going to groom and other ones that we need immediate impact from. I think Daniel Williams is one of those guys, so we'll definitely be looking out for him. The other guy in this list from the JUCO guys is Justice Sinclair from CSM. CSM has long time proven to be a great feeder for the University of Hawaii. We got some great starters out of it, including Drew Brown, one of my good friends. He played at CSM. They have a very professional level in the way that they conduct their business up there in San Mateo, and guys are just ready whenever they come out of that school. That there's almost like a Patriots style of this is how we do things here. And so I watched his tape. He's kind of like that Corey Bethley. We mentioned it a few weeks back, style of nickel safety who will come down and be able to make an impact with blitzes as well as covering guys in the secondary. So those are a couple of guys of this group that I'm particularly interested in. But we're drafting athletes, man, guys that can return kicks, and the versatility of this group is quite encouraging. So, yeah, I'm excited about these guys.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Athletic dudes, playmakers, versatile. Those are great traits, and I'm excited by it, especially a couple of these guys. We mentioned 4 junior college signings on the defensive side of the football. It's 5 junior college guys overall. Technically, the one on the offensive side of the football kind of leads us into our next subcategory, if you will, and that's dudes with the international background. And the 5th junior college guy is an offensive lineman. He's Freddie Pelling, 6'8", 305 pounds. He will be a sophomore from Ampthill, Bedfordshire, England, via Garden City Community College in Kansas. I think, some folks pretty familiar there. Garden City, one of the more known programs in Kansas. Exactly. of Last Chance U fame. He played 8 games this season for Garden City. He attended the NFL Academy prior to college over there in Europe. He's played rugby, that dude on a rugby field, my goodness, against 6'8", 305 pounds, offensive lineman. Big dude, no doubt about it. But man, that's pretty exciting. A young man from England, right? We talk about
Sounds like
getting
Tyson
international.
Fury.
Yeah, he really
boxer.
does, right?
Yeah.
And boy, if he's got Tyson Fury's hands, feet, and charisma, my goodness, that'd be a lot of fun. A guy we talked a little bit about as well, wide receiver Eddie Osei Ketia, 6'5", 210-pound freshman coming in via Canberra, Australia, is a international level sprinter who has represented New Zealand. He's actually represented Australia as well, but he is currently representing New Zealand. He is the current New Zealand 100-meter record holder. He ran a 10.08 100 meters at the 2022 World Track and Field Championships in July, breaking a record previously held by his father, Gus, which he set in 1994. He's 21 years old, so he's a little older. He spent time at secondary school at Scots College in Wellington, New Zealand. Considered a professional rugby career last year, kind of toyed around with it. Thought he was going to be part of the Tokyo Games squad for New Zealand in 2021, obviously, at the 2020 Games, was not selected. Then went out and set the New Zealand record this past year in 2022. And so I think, I don't know the whole story, but I guess he's sort of always wanted to do a little bit more than track. I'm not sure if not making the Olympic team in 2021 had anything to do with sort of expediting the decision-making process. I mentioned in previous times it sort of publicly toyed with the idea of rugby, had mentioned as well American football, and somehow it will learn more, I think, as he gets here to the 50th state, decided he wanted to play American college football. And what better place to play than on the other end of Polynesia? And so he goes from New Zealand and again, Australia, here to Hawaii at 6'5", 210 pounds. And the dude runs like the wind. Again, 10.08 overall internationally. Like the fastest dudes are running quite a bit faster than that, but he's the fastest man ever to represent New Zealand in track and field. That's something. And you get that guy on a football field moving. I don't know what he looks like running in helmet and shoulder pads, but at 6'5", 210 pounds, who's got a little bit of a rugby background. You throw him with Freddie Pelling, who's also got a little bit of a rugby background at 6'8", 305. I like it a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this guy deserves maybe an abbreviation for this name, and I'm going with Eon for him. EON, Eddie Osei Nikitia. Okay, so you heard it here first at Hawaii Football Now. Eon will be playing wide receiver for us. But he interests me most of this crew. And I'm sure we're going to hear more whenever he gets to the island about his story, kind of what that recruiting process was like coming to University of Hawaii, because this dude sounds like he had his hands full with a slew of athletic opportunity, whether that was with rugby, with track and field for the Olympic team. I'm curious what that process was like, getting him interested to come to University of Hawaii. I can't help but think about my good friend Scott Harding, former UH great, just an athlete playing all over the field for us during the Norm Chow era. And he always talked about proving as a bridge, if you will, for the athletes down in down under to get an opportunity over here with American football. And you're exactly right, Jordan. At 6'5", 210, send this guy on a vertical route. Even if he doesn't catch it, you've got a Tyreek Hill situation to open the field up to a bunch of guys underneath. That's why Travis Kelce had the years that he has in the NFL, because Tyreek opened it up for him. So this guy, you teach that guy how to catch a go route, we could be dangerous next year.
Yeah, man. If this dude's got hands,
It's over.
Oh man, the possibilities are endless. Absolutely endless. I don't know if it's necessarily what they have in mind for him. I think, ideally he's the next, freak level athlete to go play wide receiver, but I could just imagine him like covering a kickoff. just out of a rocket ship down the sideline going to cover and a kick. That'd also be kind of must see.
A little bit of
like
intimidation. Never hurts.
They've used Tylen Hines to cover kickoffs this year. The dude had breakaway speed. Just imagine that at 6'5", 210 and running at 10:08. The possibilities are endless. They're the third guy of the internationals, if you will. Vaifanua Peko, 6'3", 220-pound freshman linebacker from Samoana High School is coming in. American Samoa. He's a Polynesian Bowl selectee for this year. He's the lone Polynesian Bowl selection who currently attends, high school in Samoa. And of course, obviously the long lineage of players from American Samoa, several on the University of Hawaii team now, won a high school title as a Frosh there down in American Samoa, and a Samoana squad finished as a runner-up the last couple of years as he heads in here. I think, it's great. You got to keep that pipeline open. Absolutely. Every successful coach at the University of Hawaii, and a lot of successful coaches outside of the University of Hawaii at other schools, recruit Samoa. The talent level is just terrific. These guys love American football and have created quite a pipeline off of the island as well. One note, this is not Domota Peko's son, Junior. He was a commit from the Northern California area. I think that was something that a lot of folks latched onto early on. He could still be coming to Hawaii, but I believe he had said that he's not going to sign until the traditional signing period coming up in about a month's time. So not quite Domota Peko Jr. That had maybe been rumored to be coming. But Vaifanua Peko, I think a pretty good get here.
Absolutely. I think we are always open to any Sole that wants to come play at University of Hawaii. Generally speaking, they're bigger, they're stronger, and tougher than just about anybody, or I should say any other region of the world. And per capita produces more NFL prospects than anywhere else. So always open. That I like how you said that, Jordan. And this crew of international flair, if you will, shows the versatility of our recruiting that this coaching staff has proved. It shows craftiness, and I'd even say a little bit of creativity, where we kind of have to bob and weave in the trenches of recruiting people to the University of Hawaii. We may not have the resources of the big boys, but we have Hawaii. We have certain storylines, certain draws that could provide or could prove useful to international players such as these guys. And I like that we're open to thinking outside the box with bringing guys in like this. So this, to me, is one of the biggest highlights of this recruiting class, is getting these guys from literally all over the globe.
Yeah, that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of connections. Jeff Reinbold, who's part of the support staff, he spends a ton of time in Europe. It is kind of a pseudo celebrity over there. He's got like a cult following of American football fans from his time working television. I don't know if he had any hand in getting Pelling or anything like that, but it doesn't help to have a global presence associated with the program, right?
Sure. He's got a lot of guys on speed dial.
The phone, the Rolodex in the cell phone.
That's it.
He's got a lot of connects, as they say. All right, Peko, technically a high school signee, as an international guy. That kind of leads us into our final grouping, and that's going to be the rest of the dudes that are coming out straight from high school. We already covered the ones coming straight from Hawaii high schools, but dudes coming from the mainland, we'll get to that after a quick halftime break, second half on the other side.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
All right, second half time, we go right into the rest of our recruiting breakdown from the early signing day period. We've covered the bulk of the 26 signees for the University of Hawaii and transitioning into the rest of the signees straight from high schools. Guys coming from the mainland, we got 7 more. I already mentioned 5, right, coming from Hawaii high schools. You've got Vaifanua Peko as well, coming from Samoana High School in American Samoa. But the rest of those dudes coming from the mainland, kind of a wide array, both on the defensive and the offensive side of the football. Of course, you've got linebacker Junior Fiaui, 6'3", 200 pounds, from San Jose, California, St. Francis High School up there in the South Bay. 3-star per 24/7, the number 173 linebacker in the nation. You've got offensive lineman Caleb Jackson Carter, 6'8", 280 pounder, from Levine, Arizona, Desert Edge High School. Another 3-star and the number 4 offensive tackle in Arizona. You've got defensive lineman Zoram Patello, 6'4", 229 pounds, out of Kaysville, Utah, Layton Christian Academy. He's a pretty intriguing guy. He was first team 1A All-State. He had 5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. He also caught 8 passes for 165 yards. It's kind of a defensive end, tight end hybrid. The most curious part about him, he actually played quarterback as a junior, was like their full-time quarterback for a pretty good program, and then transitioned to being a two-way guy, tight end, defensive end, helped lead Layton Christian to a small school state championship there up in Utah. And at 6'4", 229 pounds, clearly an athlete out there. And so I'm curious to see how the University of Hawaii uses him. They list him as a defensive lineman as part of this recruit class. You've got wide receiver McLean Watkins at 6'4", 170 pounds, out of Kennedy Catholic in Buckley, Washington, up there in the Burien area. That Kennedy Catholic program has sort of been on the rise. He's a 3-star per 24/7, had 51 catches last year for 940 yards and 14 touchdowns. An interesting, fun tidbit: his sister Avery is a frosh on the UH women's hoops team, playing for Coach Laura Beeman. Any thoughts on those guys initially, Hunter? I have not mentioned yet the trio from Bishop Gorman that signed as well. We can get to that here in a sec.
Yeah, I'm always stoked whenever we can get wide receivers with some size, just to give us some versatility on the outside and kind of in the valleys of the field. And so I'm curious to see what he looks like, and he's a 3-star. I consider that a huge win for University of Hawaii. We really only grabbed, if you include the athlete from Waipahu in there as kind of that athlete, slot, running back, wide receiver kind of a guy. We only really got 2 other wide receivers in this recruiting class. So I'm particularly looking at this guy as a potential winner for us. So, yeah, I'm definitely looking at him just as a quarterback. I'm curious to see anytime we bring a receiver in, what they could do for us in this run and shoot hopeful next season. And then, that D lineman you were talking about with athlete capabilities that they had him playing quarterback. I can imagine if he can do that, we could also use him on the offensive side of the football. Even though he comes in as a defensive player, doesn't mean we can't swap him over. So he's someone I'm also looking at. Was that McCumber? Was that?
That was Patello. Him? Yeah, Patello.
Sorry,
Patello. Yeah, out of
Kaysville,
Utah.
That's right. So I'm also looking at him as someone that UH kind of develop and move around coming out of high school.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see some of these youngsters develop, right? Hard to say at this point who's going to be the immediate impact guy who's going to be playing right away. I think there's some potential for some of these guys. And as you mentioned, the bulk of this early recruiting class, the 26 guys, a lot of defensive backs, a lot of defensive linemen. You've got a handful of linebackers and a handful of offensive linemen. There weren't a whole lot of signings at wide receiver, at running back, and at quarterback, right? The only quarterback really, John Chiave Sangapolu Teleata Punahou. As you already broke down the wide receivers and running backs, really not a whole lot there. And so that leads me to believe that, I assume they're going to be guys on the horizon, obviously. That running back room, I'm really high on. They obviously feel pretty good about Braden Shager at quarterback, and the wide receiver room as well, which has a ton coming back. We talked to our guy Zion Bowens last week, who's not, but
deep.
After him, it's a deep group. So I think that's at least somewhat of an indication that from the offensive skill side, they feel pretty good about what they have coming back, and really emphasize some of the other position groups to plug holes where, especially on the offensive line, especially on the defensive line, that there's just a lot of departures. And so it's kind of interesting to see the breakdown of this class.
Totally. And that's a perfect segue. I look at 4 things of this recruiting class that these coaches did, amazingly well. Number 1 is recruiting Hawaii. They got the number 1 quarterback from this last year's recruiting class out of the Hawaiian Islands, which is a huge win for us. Amidst the other guys that we got from Hawaii high schools, that's definitely something that stands out. Number 2 to me, recruiting internationally. That just proves, again, we talked about earlier, our versatility and this coaching staff's reach in getting guys to come here. Number 3, the transfer portal, getting guys who can come make an immediate impact from other Division I schools. That's a huge win, including one that we played against this past year from Wyoming, that DB. That's a big win. And then the 4th one, I'm sure you're going to branch off of this, is the pipeline from significant high schools on the mainland with Bishop Gorman. Coach Brown's connection as a former defensive coach from them, bringing 3 serious studs from that powerhouse that could immediately play for us. All 4 of those things lead to Hawaii creating this culture of something's going on here. The wins are going to happen. Come be a part of this special thing that we're creating.
Yeah, that's the perfect segue there, because I think 3 of the high school guys that have a pretty good shot of playing, definitely a couple of them. You got the 3 Bishop Gorman products. Aiden McCumber, 6 foot, 265-pound defensive lineman. 6 sacks, 19 tackles for loss last year, 46 overall tackles, consensus 3-star, no matter where you look at it, really, from all of the recruiting services. You got linebacker Jemai Otis, 5'10", 224-pound freshman. Number 2 linebacker in Nevada per 24/7. He had over 100 tackles each of the last 2 seasons. The guy's been a tackle machine, maybe a little undersized. I think you could say the same thing about McCumber, a large reason why they maybe weren't quite recruited as heavily by some of the bigger schools. Last season, 2022, for Otis, 103 tackles to lead the team, 6 sacks, 23 tackles for loss. And then you've got defensive back Elijah Palmer, pretty versatile guy. I've seen him play in the slot. They obviously came down here, played St. Louis earlier this past fall season. Another consensus 3-star. Palmer's 5'9", 174 pounds. Number 6 overall prospect in Nevada per ESPN. He had 38 tackles and 3 interceptions. He's at the Under Armour All-American game this week. The dude's an Under Armour All-American, and I get there are more All-American games and whatnot. But that's a pretty big deal. That's a pretty big deal there. Those 3 guys, not the biggest for their positions, but boy, the stats stand out. And especially when you consider, look, Gorman had been down a little after, repeatedly being in the national championship conversation. They were back this year. 3rd in the final USA Today Super 25 poll nationally. This is nationally after Bosco, who was the consensus national champion, both Max Preps and USA Today. Mater Dei was right behind them, and that is Gorman's only loss. Like they played Mater Dei, and that was their only loss, and they lost by 3, 4. It was less than a touchdown. That was their only loss this season, and they play their usual national schedule on top of their Nevada League schedule, and then won another state championship. They were 3rd per USA Today and 4th in the country per Max Prep. So they were top 4 in the country, whichever poll you wanted to look at. And these guys played a ton. They were starters. you look at Otis, right? For the number 3 team in the country, he had 103 tackles, led the team in tackles. Elijah Palmer on that team, 38 tackles, 3 interceptions. He's an Under Armour All-American. You got Aiden McCumber, who repeatedly got into the backfield, 19 tackles for loss on that defensive line. And especially at some of these positions on that defensive line, that's a really deep position group for Bishop Gorman. He's not necessarily playing every snap, but making the most of it. All 3 were really impressive when they came down and played St. Louis. Wasn't the best St. Louis team we've seen in a while. And so, you take that a little bit with a grain of salt. But again, they played really well against some of the best competition in the country. And obviously the connection with Coach Chris Brown, but that's big. 3 of those guys from Gorman off a loaded defense, off a team again that finished top 4 in the country. That's a big deal. I think it's a huge deal. And I know you've kind of basically echoed those sentiments, Hunter.
Yeah, and I think we're going to start to see more of this. I think that is prayerfully one of our marketing strategies with high school recruits coming out of Hawaii is the ability to play together, the chance to continue what you've built on, with interpersonal relationships, what you guys can accomplish on the field. People want to play together whenever those relationships are strong, and play for a coach that and trust. That's where I think Hawaii needs to try to ride in and stay from a recruiting and marketing strategy. And, we mentioned it last week, Jordan. I think we're going to also see guys coming back who maybe chose to play somewhere else, jumping from Hawaii. And I think we just got to keep that door open and see what happens, because what we're creating here, I still believe is really special.
Yeah, there are a lot of prospects in this class of 26 that leads you to get pretty excited. I think again, 17 on the defensive side of the football, 9 obviously on offense, 12 linemen, 8 of them on the defensive line. You got 6 defensive backs, 3 linebackers, 5 technically on the offensive skill position side, including the couple from Hawaii, and John Kiabe Sangapolutele, the quarterback, and Tamu Uiliata, the athlete from Waipahu. So yeah, this is a group that I think the coaching staff is excited about, a group that bears repeating, isn't done yet. Like there's still quite a few roster spots with all departures over the last few years for a variety of reasons, and obviously matriculation again this year. So this is hopefully momentum going into next month in the traditional signing period as well.
Yeah, no, that's the interesting thing. I still believe that the NCAA needs to take a good hard look at this early signing period, just for the ripple effects it has over the entire college football landscape. Coaches like Coach Kelly leaving Notre Dame last year when they still had CFP chance to get in there, leaving them high and dry to go to LSU to secure early National Signing Day recruits. It's kind of a messy and not a really pretty part of the college football year, in my opinion, Jordan. And you can't blame these coaches. That's just part of the schedule. And so I bring all that up to say we're not really done. It's kind of an ongoing recruiting year with transfer portal, with guys choosing not to sign on early National Signing Day. So I'm sure, as always, we'll always have something to talk about.
Yeah, we always will. And something for the listeners to talk about. Drop us a line. Appreciate you guys as always out from VA. Pretty high on Eddie. Eon, as you call him. Eddie Osei Kitia out of Australia, New Zealand, the sprinter. John dropping us a line. Excited to see what Chad Owens Jr. develops. I think you mentioned him last week on the episode. Hunter, Mike, Ryan. I think still hopeful that they bulk up the quarterback room as well. And that's I think any typical fan would say, hey man, you can never have too many good quarterbacks. It's the June Jones line of thinking. Like, give me as many quality throwers of the football as you can get. Give me 9, 10. It doesn't matter. You can never have too many quarterbacks. So those guys kind of dropping a line on the quarterbacks as well. And of course, Hawaii's hope dream is to improve the program, contend for Mountain West championships, and get back to playing, I think, to some national relevance because, hey, you can always dream, right, Hunter? As we wrap up the second half here, I kind of wanted to get into this because as crazy as semifinal Saturday was in the college football playoff on New Year's Eve, and it started off obviously with TCU stunning Michigan, and a lot of that Michigan kind of got in their own way at times, but here's TCU with a first-year head coach. Sonny Dykes just always seems to find a job, and the dude wins obviously more often than not. But TCU is a former WAC rival of the University of Hawaii, right? TCU, a former WAC rival who then went to the Mountain West, then I think sort of signed on for the Big East, a la San Diego State and Boise for a time. But now obviously in the Big 12, they're playing for the national championship next week, Monday. And I know they've got a richer tradition going back in the day than the University of Hawaii does. I know they obviously play in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. I know they've got, the deep pockets of alums and boosters and things like that. But boy, we can dream, right? Former WAC rival Utah just played in their second consecutive Rose Bowl. And I'm not saying that's on the horizon for the University of Hawaii. There are a lot of other circumstances that go beyond just getting good recruits in. But man, it's kind of not hard to think back to a time not that long ago. Light years in terms of college football, because we know the ever-evolving landscape and how things change and how money changes things. But it wasn't that long ago. It was this century. It was this century that Hawaii was playing LaDainian Tomlinson and the Horned Frogs in conference games. And now here is TCU, and I love it. I think it's great. And I get it. They're a power conference team now, but they're always sort of that kindred, I think, spirit between Hawaii football fans and some of these former have-nots, if you will. And don't get me wrong, they're in a different stratosphere now. They're in a different class. They've moved up the social ladder, if you will. But it's kind of wild to think that TCU is playing for the national championship against Georgia on Monday.
Any given Saturday, Jordan. I changed that from Sunday because obviously we're talking CFP here. But any given Saturday, anything can happen. It's a beautiful thing about this game of football. The athletic budget of TCU compared to that of Michigan is laughable, and yet they hung a number on those guys, man. I don't have it in front of me right now, but it was in the 40s over the number 2 team in the entire country. That's a big deal. College football probably different than the pros. You get a special group of guys together, senior leaders that play well together, that play in chemistry, that play in motion and fluidity together. They can be scary. We see that every year with basketball too, in March Madness. It's not all name, image, and likeness, getting the most 5-star guys on there. If you don't have a winning culture, those guys won't play together. And kind of bringing it home to us, as another team in the group of 5, Tulane beat USC yesterday, 46-45, driving down the length of the field with only a minute left and beating them just as time is expiring. That is a huge deal for us in the next couple of years as the CFP shifts from 4 teams to 12, because Tulane went into that game as 11-2. It wasn't a perfect season. We don't necessarily need the 2007 Sugar Bowl caliber of a year for University of Hawaii to even get invited to something like that. Stay in our lane, win the Mountain West, only need a couple of losses on there. And who knows, we could get invited to the dance. I mean, the next couple of years really are a new era, a bright new horizon for the schools that are in the group of 5 like Tulane. And who cares that USC brings those guys in there with, $1 million name, image, and likeness contracts. We beat them. You know what I mean? It's a big deal for schools like Hawaii.
It really is. And the possibilities are there, and I get it. The American has kind of separated themselves. I think it's now 4 New Year's 6 bowl game wins for the American in just 10 years of existence. In what UCF has done, Houston, Cincinnati. Obviously, those 3 are on their way to the Big 12. But now Tulane, who emerged as kind of the cream of the American this year. I think it shows where the Mountain West is at this time. And they've kind of fallen to second fiddle, I think, amongst the group of 5 conferences. I don't think that they are far off from kind of getting back to contending for that New Year's 6 bowl bid, and obviously a college football playoff bid potentially, right? As maybe a highest ranked group of 5 team. Those details yet to be worked out. We'll see exactly what that looks like when the playoff field expands here really shortly, and how that works out with automatic bids and at-large bids and things of that nature. With the way Fresno finished the season last year, with the way that some of the other schools have sort of been on the rise, Colorado State's investment in programs, Boise State, obviously, maybe not being too far off from getting back to the Boise we've come to know. It's imperative that the Mountain West kind of try to keep pace with the American, because we know the American's going through some shuffles of their own. We mentioned losing some of those schools, obviously, to the Big 12. The Mountain West probably likely will lose schools in the future as well. San Diego State, obviously, heavily rumored to be on its way to the Pac-12 eventually. Schools like Colorado State and Fresno and Boise, UNLV, I think are obviously attractive products as conferences ever expand and shift and evolve. But University of Hawaii, they've got so many things working against them, which we've covered so many times on this pod. But trying to get back there, trying to get back competitive, that's the first step. You got to be able to put a product on the field. And obviously, with this recruiting class, the hope is that they are taking a massive leap forward. And we're hopeful that they will as well. So we'll see how that all goes. Any final thoughts here, Hunter, as we close it out on our year opening episode 71?
Yeah, that's a good segment. We got a great year in front of us. Much different than where we were last year at this time with University of Hawaii. So the sky's blue, and perfectly nothing but goodness on the horizon for us.
Well, I hope for blue skies for you the rest of your time back visiting family in Oklahoma. We know how the weather can shift there on the drop of a hat. So safe travels as well on your way back home, my man. Big mahalos to Hunter, big mahalos to Jaron, our guy on the controls as always. And thanks to Spectrum Mobile, Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union, and Battery Bill for sponsoring our podcast. Again, Happy New Year, everybody. We will see you next week. Enjoy the national championship on Monday. Georgia and TCU. We'll see if the Horned Frogs can shock the world once again. I'd probably side with Georgia if I had to pick there. Should be fun as well. Week 18 of the NFL season coming up later on this weekend. We'll see y'all next week on Hawaii Football Now. Aloha, everybody.
You've been listening to Hawaii Football Now with Jordan Helle and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.